Welcome to The Secrets of Success. By following the proven techniques of the guests who appear on this series, you'll learn that even successful people run into detours and failures, and how you can apply their success techniques to change your life.
You're now listening to the most unique show on radio, the show dedicated to making you a success. How can we overcome hopelessness? Today, Dr. Bettye Kearse, author of The Other Madisons, will tell us how. Dr. Kearse, thanks for being with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Now, your book is just coming out, The Other Madisons, and you have a very interesting story yourself. You're a pediatrician, if I recall. Is that correct?
Yes, a retired pediatrician.
And author. So give us a little background.
Well, I would like to tell the audience about my family background, not just about my being a pediatrician, but my family background, I think, is rather unique. Because I descend from an enslaved cook and her owner and half-brother, President James Madison. And I know this through oral history, which has been passed down from generation to generation. So first learned about it when I was about 5.
And you're a practicing or were a practicing medical doctor in the Boston area, pediatrician.
Yes.
And obviously worked with many people. So not only do you have that interesting background, the book, The Other Madisons, but you've worked with a lot of people in terms of personal development.
Yes. I was a pediatrician in the Dorchester neighborhood, inner city Boston. And I really enjoyed it quite a bit. It was very rewarding. But very often, very sadly, many of my Black patients would reveal in various ways that racism had convinced them that they didn't have any talents, that they didn't have anything to look forward to except early death through violence, or if they were lucky, just jail. And, it was just this sense of hopelessness that bothered me so much. I mean, I knew how to take care of their physical needs, but it was very hard for me to help them overcome this sense of hopelessness. So I worked with patients one-on-one. I am now developing a program for young people. I'm going to start it off in my local church and hope to expand it to a broad area. But I want to talk to them about what hopelessness is, and I want to offer them a way of looking at their heritage, their enslaved heritage, and see how they can use what enabled the slaves to get through such a horrible condition.
And as we were talking about before the show, years ago, someone mentioned the word hope to me. And he started talking about it, and it really enlightened me on what a important word that was. As long as we have hope, whether it's beginning school, that we can get a degree in teaching, in accounting, in medicine, whatever that might be. If we have an illness, isn't it great to see someone who says, well, the doctor diagnosed me with something, but I'm going to overcome it. I have the strength. I'm going to fight it back. In some cases they do, and unfortunately some cases the germs or the illness wins out. Uh-huh. But to be hopeless, and especially at a young age, and look and say, I have 30, 50, 70 years ahead of me, and I'm hopeless, this is why I think you're so important to us. And having an expert like you, even if we do have that spirit or feeling down, hopefully today you will be able to bring us back. And let's begin with asking you, when someone is hopeless, what does that lead to in their life?
Well, first let's just try to define what a hopelessness is. It is not seeing a way out and not seeing a way forward. And so what I try to do is to help them, narrow that down. What is it that you want? What is it about yourself that matters to you, that you can hold on to and nurture and bring forward, whatever it is? It might just be graduating from high school. Okay, so how do we get you through high school? And, you can do this. There are many resources we're going to look for, and we're going to get you through high school. And
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to continue with that. Getting the thought process, and then do you continue to work with them? Do you email them, write them? Do they come back for talks, or like we would think of it going back for a class or a seminar?
Well, when I was practicing, I was able to see them in person, because that was a good thing to do, just to sort of check in, because you can tell a lot just by looking at a person. Are they down? Are they lacking energy? Or are they looking a little bit, more positive? Okay, so now let's talk about what's going on with you today. And, it can just be a 15-minute check-in. And I think it's just knowing that somebody cares and somebody, can give you support. It's not that the parents couldn't or didn't want to. Sometimes the parents themselves were, feeling a bit stuck. But, being a doctor sort of gives me, it's not that I matter more than parents. It's certainly not true. But, okay, so here's this professional who's not my parents, and they're seeing something in me. And they care about me. Parents have to care. Doctors are supposed to care, but not necessarily in such an intimate way, inside, who they are and who they want to be. So I would just check in with them. If they couldn't make it, a quick phone call. Didn't do too much emailing then, but now, since I'm retired, I have been in touch with some of them through social media. And it's just good to check in. Okay, so how are you doing? Not so well. Okay, well, what happened? What can we do? So you just keep pushing forward. You're not stuck.
And, your role in society, we all admire our doctors. We all respect them, and obviously very well-educated people. And I know, and I'll tell you in my life, just the mere fact that a doctor took the time, and in a few instances they did, on relatively small injuries or toothaches, to call me at night. And one doctor called me at 9 o'clock. I said, "Doctor, is everything okay?" I'm asking him, "Is everything okay?" He goes, "Yes, I just got your blood test in. I thought you'd like to know." I said, "And you're calling me at 9 o'clock at night to tell me?" He goes, "Yeah, here's how it came back." I was honestly so honored. And it raised me up that they thought enough of me to call me, that, I'm a regular person. There's nothing they're going to get benefits from calling me at that time or doing something. So they're not doing it for goodie points or bonus points or something. But that they did that, it just picked up my spirits. And as you said, it made me feel, hey, someone cares about me. Someone important cares about me. And that they would call me back and tell me this. It's nice to see that kind of person is out in the world. We see all the bad people. If there's a shooting, if there's a fire, if there's an emergency, a car accident, of course, we see it on the news. It's something of action. But to know there's good people like yourself working. What is the mindset of the person when they feel hopeless? When you see someone coming in, how are they talking to you?
Well, I was just going to say that when someone else cares about you, they think, well, maybe I should care about myself. Maybe I have some value that I'm not seeing.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. So, when they first come in, they just don't think they have any value. And for African American young people, it is racism. But, I always say, to me, the greatest tragedy is the loss of potential. All young people, are born with so much potential in so many different directions, so many areas of life. And if they're unable to see that and unable to be able to nurture it and fulfill it, for me, that's just very sad.
That's a great point. And how much we as a country may be losing, a city, a state, or just an area, a school, not getting that potential out of people because they feel hopeless. And what a difference. We all know if we're watching a sporting event, and everything is sports today, that if we feel our team can come back, and if they start coming back in the last 2 innings or the fourth quarter, we're into it, we're cheering, we see a momentum build, and it kind of feeds on itself if the spirit is there.
Yeah.
Dr. Kearse, before we go further, I'd like to let our audience know, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHBC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Today we're talking to Dr. Bettye Kearse. She is the author of The Other Madisons, a new book that's just coming out. Dr. Kearse, one, where can we get the book? And two, is there a website where we can find out more about you and the book?
The Other Madisons is available on all online services, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Powell's, whatever you usually use. But if you have a local independent bookstore, I would encourage you to support them by ordering it from them and purchasing it from them, because our bookstores are just so important to communities and have done so much over the years for us. And I have a website, and it's theothermadisons.com.
And of course, we'll give that information later in the show. If you want to get that down or refer it to someone, we'll ask Dr. Kearse to give it to us again later. And thank you for remembering those bookstores, because I think today the little vendors in our neighborhood are so much more important. We appreciate them. And as we look down the block, we could see what the world would be like without them. And it doesn't give us too many choices when that happens. Dr. Kearse, what's the role of schools? How do you see the role of schools in helping people to get this hopeful attitude?
Well, it's like helping young people to believe in themselves, to show them that they do have talents, and to have high expectations for them. One of the problems in the Black community is that even teachers can have low expectations of Black students sometimes. So they've sort of bought into this same idea themselves, that Black people are not as bright. They're the only way they're going to move forward is to become athletes or entertainers, and that's simply not true. So I think teachers themselves, need to have a positive attitude and supportive attitude towards their students. Recognizing that there are all kinds of skills that everyone has and that can be developed.
Are there any amazing cases that you've come through, or even just a feel-good case where you worked with someone and can tell us about them? You don't have to give us their name, of course, but where they were picked up by this care that you've given them, concern, attention, and either turned the life around or certainly got it back on track?
Yeah, I have a story about a young man, one of my patients, who was wrongly convicted of a crime that he could not even have physically done. And he went to jail, and that was heartbreaking for him. He had wanted to go to college. He had, wanted to end up having, I think he wanted to be a lawyer. And then, he went to jail, and he just felt that, he's got a record now, and he's never going to go anywhere. Well, I worked with his lawyer to end up he did serve the time, but I worked with a lawyer to get his record clear. And then he was still kind of despondent because he's thinking this is going to happen again. I'm going to be stopped. So I said, wait a minute. He had graduated. He did graduate from college. I said, wait a minute. Let's get some applications. Let's just send them in and see what happens. And don't stop. Okay, so he didn't get into the first couple of colleges. And so I said, let's keep going. Let's do more applications. So we did. And he got into a college. It was a 2-year college, okay, and I followed him through. Okay, is this 2-year college going to give you what you want? He changed his mind. He wanted to go into business. And so we did the 2 years, and I, helped him with his applications. And, then he transferred to a 4-year college, and then he started his own business. So.
No, that's a great story. I mean, this could have been a life lost.
Yeah.
And instead of that, and maybe even leading to a life of crime, because if you give up, you have to get your food, your income someplace. Mm-hmm. So whether it's by, let's say, off-color means or doing something, and unfortunately, when you come out of jail, how many people want to hire you? That must be very difficult in itself. We're all complaining about a 3-month shutdown today, or stay in, or don't go out. And when you're in jail, you're there usually for over a year, and many times 2 and 3 and 4 years. So what that must be like mentally, and then the view that society has of us, it's got to be a very difficult life. But stories like that must probably make you feel better than all of the patients you worked with, and how you could turn a life around.
It does. In fact, as I said, I really enjoyed being a pediatrician, but this has become my life's purpose. Helping young African Americans to believe in themselves. And I like to go back to what my grandfather used to tell me all the time, and I share with patients too. He used to say, racism is just a feeble leftover of slavery. And then he would go on to tell me what remarkable people slaves were, because they had a sense of their own humanity. They knew, they believed deeply that they were human beings. They were not pieces of property. And they also knew that there's something better than this. They had a sense of hope. They had a sense of, being able to make the best of it, but of what they have now, but also still to look forward in terms of what they could do for themselves and their families. And, okay, so when they died, those qualities did not die with them. They passed them down to their descendants. The same strength, the same ability to have hope, also the ability to nurture their talents. And so young people today inherited those qualities and can use them and make contributions to their communities and to the country and, even to the world.
I think it's great what you're doing because, again, as a profession, as a pediatrician and a doctor, you have such a credibility. And to be able to go out and to speak to people and give them cases that you've worked with. And as you said, you may not even know it at the time. It may be the person sitting in the back of the room who looks bored, but it might be seeping in like that slow drip of water. And they get out there and say, well, you know what, let me have a little more hope tonight. Maybe it's just 1 or 2 days, but maybe that's all they need to put them over. Do you have any favorite authors or motivational speakers or I guess we would call them motivators that you reference or like to recommend to your audience?
Well, I like Erica Latrice. She has a TV program that's called Be Inspired. And, it's every session she offers 3 very specific pointers, just quick pointers. She doesn't give a whole speech. So it'll be something like what you see as failures is feedback, and like feedback on what you should do differently, or take a look at what you could be done better. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay. You were talking Erica Latrice and
yes,
feedback?
Erica Latrice. And she says your past does not define your future. So I like her, and I also like Bettye Brown. She encourages people to look at themselves and see things that they may not like about themselves, but that they may be able to use for personal growth. And like she promotes vulnerability. So let's say you feel really vulnerable. But she says that vulnerability allows you to relate to people. No one likes somebody who's got all the answers and who's, just sort of hard-nosed and inflexible. She says, be vulnerable. Get to know yourself. Let other people get to know you. So Erica Latrice and Brene Brown.
Brene Brown. Dr. Kearse, once again, I would like to let our audience know that if you're just tuning in, you're listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan. Our guest today is Dr. Bettye Kearse. She is the author of The Other Madisons. And Dr. Kearse, I'd ask you if you could tell us if there's a website and where we can get the book, The Other Madisons.
The website is theothermadisons.com, and it can be purchased online through any online bookseller or through your local independent bookseller. And I would encourage the audience to support their local independent booksellers. Especially right now, we don't want them to go out of business. They're too important.
And again, we all see those stores we love up and down the block. You can do something for them by supporting them, not going to the big stores and helping them out in a time of need. Dr. Kearse, what are some of the game plans that you direct parents to get people to be more hopeful? I keep wanting to say helpless, but hopeful in the world. If you're working with parents of children, what would you tell them? How would you direct them based on your experience?
I would encourage parents to look at the individual child and help that child to identify their own passions, and not to have, the parent shouldn't impose their expectations or their goals on the child. I mean, it's great when they align, but sometimes they don't. So the individuality of the child needs to be kind of pulled up and developed, whatever that is. Let's say, the parent wants them to be a doctor, but the child wants to be a writer. And so they should nurture what the child's passions are.
I think that's a great point for all of us. What are some of the tips you would give to our audience, and just anybody across the board that's working with people, with young people? What can we do? It's always easy, or we feel good if we send a check to somebody or some organization. In a way, that's a nice thing, and maybe that's part of your suggestions. But are there things we could personally do, whether we're retired, whether we're at the peak of our careers, or just starting out, that would help develop this, and let's say it in a worldwide spread, make the world a better place?
Well, yes, money is always nice to contribute it, but I think showing that you personally care. So maybe through a church, or through some school activity. Maybe it could be, using social media. Kids are really into that now.
Good point. Yeah.
But, just showing caring and offering help and, supporting their sense of hope. It can really just be anything. The key is to show, that you care. Checks are nice.
I think,
but
as you say,
presence is more important.
I was going to say that just we all have a skill of some nature, and it might not be even one we use every day. There's some great people who have a facility for writing that could probably help students after school, maybe tutoring, maybe working through a church or a not-for-profit where they could just help out. They don't have to change everybody in the world, but if they can change 5 local lives or do something to help those people. And I think once you kind of get into that arena, you find more opportunities, ways to get maybe your neighbors, your children, your spouse involved, and we can do more. Are there some myths we should be aware of that we don't fall into certain traps?
Well, we've touched on some of them, and they all fall under the category of racism, which is that African American people are not as intelligent, not as creative, that they're prone to criminality, which is a whole different topic, and has led to police brutality. That African Americans just have nothing to contribute to society. That is just a huge and very damaging myth.
I always say to people, just turn it around. Whatever you are, Italian, Irish, German, English, suppose people said that about you. The Germans have nothing to contribute. They're worthless. They're going to go to jail anyway, so let's send them to jail. Whatever the stories or backstory is. How would you like it? And of course, people don't like it when it's about them. But there's always a name, a nationality or a reason in there, right-handed people, people with disabilities, whatever it is. You wouldn't like it if it was you, your son, someone in your family. Why say it about someone else, and how is that benefiting anybody? When working with people, what is it that we can do to get more hands-on involved on a day-to-day basis? Is there something just very simply we can do that we may be overlooking with people at work or people we see in the neighborhood?
Well, talk to them. Try to get to know them. People in your neighborhood, people at work, people maybe at church, wherever you're interacting with people, recognizing that they are people too, that we're all human, that 99% of our DNA is identical. We all have the same needs and talents, maybe not the same talents, but we all have the same ability to grow as people.
Dr. Kearse, before we wrap up, just tell us once again, the book is The Other Madisons. Tell us where we can get the book and about the website real quick.
You can get the book on any online bookseller or your local independent bookstore, and it's available on my website, and more information on my website. It's called theothermadisons.com, theothermadisons.com.
Easy enough to remember. We want to thank you for being with us today, for helping us out, and hopefully we can all follow your advice and get rid of that word hopelessness and bring it into the new word of just hopeful for everyone, so that we're all growing with one another, all reaching our potential, and eliminating a lot of the self-made problems that we're actually putting into society today. Thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, and thank you, Bill. It was really a pleasure meeting you.
Would like to let our audience know that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.